Okay, guys, we are now going to do two examples for database normalization. Now, for our first example, we have a table called table employee. Now, table employee has the following columns: employee number, name, department name, hourly rate, hourly class, and employee branch. Now, in order for us to have a table in the first normal form, we must observe the following rules. Number one, all of the key attributes are defined, meaning the primary key attributes are properly defined or created. And then number two, there are no repeating groups. Repeating groups, meaning to say in one particular column, there's only one particular data that is found. Then lastly, all attributes are dependent on the primary key, meaning all the columns depend their value on the primary key. Okay. Now take note, in this example, we have an employee branch wherein one employee can have two branches. Okay. So from that information alone, we can deduct that there are repeating groups under employee branch. So in order for us to have this table become a first and one NF or first normal form, we must remove the repeating groups and we must place them into separate records or data. Okay. Repeating groups was found in branch column as one employee can have two or more branches. So what we did in order for our table to be in one NF is we removed the repeating branches and then we inserted them as a new record. So notice that some data here, like for Rico Santos and Parsani Tua, they appear twice. However, their branches are different or unique. Okay. There can also be some instances in the first normal form wherein no primary key is defined. For example, there's no employee number. What will you do? Okay, if you encounter that particular instance, what you could do is to define or create a primary key or an ID of your own. Okay, you could actually do that. Okay, so for example, there's no employee number. What you did was to put employee ID and then you give it a value of 1, 2, 3, 4 as long as they are all unique. Okay, that is also included in the process of the first normal form. Okay. Next, after we have come up with our table in the first normal form, we will convert it into a 2NF or a second normal form table. What are the requirements? Number one, make sure that the tables are already in the first normal form. Then make new tables to eliminate partial dependency. Okay, please be reminded what is partial dependency. Partial dependency occurs when column A and B functionally determines C and D. Okay, wherein wherein column B functionally determines column C or column A functionally determines column D. Okay, in this example, what are the partial dependency? As I have said, okay, one of our primary key is the employee number. Okay, what else? Employee number together with the department number together with the employee branch. That is one primary key or one unique key. We can determine one unique record using that one. So what happens in a partial dependency? Basically, for example, employee number 101 plus department number L003 plus employee branch QC will tell us that the employee is Rico Santos under finance with an hourly rate of 55 with an hourly class of A. Our partial dependency here are department name, which is dependent on department number, hourly rate, which is dependent on the hourly class, or you could actually interchange this one. Okay. Those are the two partial dependency that we have. Okay. Now we must eliminate them and place them into separate table. Why? Because one of the rules for the second normal form is that we must have one table for one particular entity or subject. Okay. If your table contains multiple ideas or multiple subject or multiple entity, therefore, you are not in the second normal form or 2NF. So let us take a look at how we updated our table. So from this table employee, first we separated table department. Okay. So we created a new table having unique department number and department name. And then we created a lookup table in order for us to connect department to employee. So under this lookup table, we have employee number and department number. Okay. Employee number will connect to employee number of table employee, whereas department number will connect to the department number of table department. Next, we also created table employee branch. Why? So that we could connect the employee number to the respective branches. Notice that in this particular table employee, there is no more repeating records or data. Okay? And then, in this example, we also separated, okay, the hourly rate. So the hourly rate is A 22, B 28, C 55. Okay. We created a table hourly rate wherein all the hourly rate will be defined by the hourly class. Now, in order for us to connect the hourly rate to the employee, we created a new table or a lookup table called table employee hourly rate. Okay, wherein we can check the hourly rate of our employee. Okay. Now notice in this example, we do not have any third normal form. Meaning to say after the second normal form, all of our data has been normalized. It can possibly be like that. That up until the second normal form, your table is already normalized. Always remember that normalization only requires up until the third normal form. Beyond that, it's already very complicated and can um, degrade the performance of your database or your table. Okay. Next example. Next example, guys, we are looking at two particular tables. Okay, we have table student, okay, with the column student number, name, barangay, and subject. We have a table grade with the student number, subject, fee, grade, teacher ID, and teacher name. Now, again, going back to the rules of our first normal form, okay, the rules are all of the key attributes should be defined. There are no repeating groups, and all attributes are dependent on the primary key. Okay, first, let us check the repeating groups. Where are the repeating groups found? It is found on the column subject under table student. So the subjects are repeated So what we do is to insert a new record for each and every new subject per student so that we could separate the repeating groups. Okay. And then looking at our second table, the table grade, okay, we can see that there is no repeating groups with that one, as well as all the attributes are dependent on the primary key. So by using the primary key, we could come up with the values of our other columns. So that is good. So this is our first normal form. Next, second normal form. Again, your table should be in your first normal form. And then we need to eliminate partial dependency. And we have to make sure that one table contain only one entity or subject. Okay. So for this instance, we separate the subject details from table student and the subject details from table grade. Okay. So what we did was create a separate table student, create a separate table subject, okay? And then we created a table grade wherein only the student number and subject is found together with the grade, teacher ID, and the teacher name, okay? So in this instances, student number can tell you the value of student name and student barangay. Table subject can tell you the fee. Table grade, student number, and subject can tell you the grade, teacher ID, and teacher name. So those are the partial dependencies that we have separated into separate columns and tables. Lastly, third normal form. In order for you to derive the third normal form, you must have tables that are already in the second normal form. Next, we must make new tables to eliminate transitive dependency. Now, what are transitive dependency again? Transitive dependency occurs when column A determines the value or uh, fully determines column B and column B fully determines column C, and where column A can fully determine the value of column C. Okay, so basically, in order for us to determine the value of column C, okay, we must go to column B via column A. Okay, so basically we are passing through. So in this instance, what is our transitive dependency? Our transitive dependency here is the teacher ID found under table grade. Why? Because if you notice, if I tell you that the student is student 1, I can already tell you that the teacher is EF card with an ID of 1. If I tell you that the student number is 3 under the subject of computer science, I can tell you that the teacher is Isaac Newton with an ID of 4. So in this instance, by going to the value of our primary key, we can access the value of another column, okay, via or through the ID of another of another column. So basically, student number and student subject functionally determines the value of teacher ID. Teacher ID functionally determines the value of teacher name. Okay, so that is transitive dependency. So what we do is to separate this one, these two columns into a new table called table teacher. Okay. And then we will create the table called table teacher and put teacher name under it. And then we will connect table teacher via the teacher ID found in table grade. Okay. So that is how you would create a normalized table based on one or more table that are not normalized.